Pizza time.
So, some of you may know about the One Marvelous Scene project, where all your favorite YouTube video essayists come together and talk about their favorite scene out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This project was created by Nando V Movies to talk about one scene out of the MCU that's your favorite, right before the release of Avengers Endgame. And well... Okay, Avengers Endgame came out 2 years ago. I know, I'm 2 years late to the party.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now I know what you're thinking. What could this guy possibly talk about that hasn't been talked about before? And yeah, I thought the same thing. I was going to talk about the Avengers Assembled scene in Avengers Endgame, or even the scene when Captain America caught Mjolnir, and how that scene ties into the line given to him about how he's not a perfect soldier, but a good man. But I thought I needed something bigger, bolder, but at the same time, simple. Maybe a scene from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
No.
Okay. A scene from Avengers 1?
No.
Okay, how about a scene from Iron Man 1?
No. No.
Well, what scene can I do that's better than the Marvel Cinematic Universe itself?
Raindrops keep falling on my head, just a bit.
The raindrops keep falling on my head scene from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. A scene that works so perfectly even if it's overtaken by the action, the romance, and the melodramatic scenes, and the mythical ideas of what it means to be a hero. But in my opinion, this scene stands the test of time and stands above everything in this film. But why does this scene work so perfectly even overtaken by the over-the-top spectacle and romantic and heroic film that this movie is? Here's why. I know what you're thinking. Spider-Man 2 isn't an MCU movie, and look, I love this scene way too much, so just bear with me. So, I have rewatched Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. I rewatched Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and it was insane, corny, dumb, absolutely amazing, fun, exhilarating, perfectly executed, over the top, romantic, sad, ridiculous, bad, and, cringy? Yeah. Yikes. But I will say rewatching these movies was an absolute blast. And Spider-Man 2 specifically. Spider-Man 2 was always one of my favorite comic book films of all time. It's my favorite Spider-Man film too. But my favorite comic book movie of all time is The Dark Knight. But revisiting Spider-Man 2, it is now my favorite, and in my opinion, the greatest comic book film of all time because of one idea: simplicity. You see, Sam Raimi at the time of the release of Spider-Man 1 had the impossible task of making a better film than the first outing of the mass hero, Spider-Man, because at the time, Spider-Man 1 made the most money at the box office on its opening weekend. But Sam Raimi, the mad lad himself, pulled it off by making a great sequel and the greatest Spider-Man film and the greatest comic book film of all time.
But what does this have to do with the raindrops keep falling on my head scene?
I'm getting to that, okay? The question is, why does this scene work so well in a movie like Spider-Man 2 with lots of over-the-top action and melodramatic scenes? And the answer to that is because the scene is so simple, but at the same time complex. I don't mean emotionally or morally complex, I mean in terms of filmmaking, it's complex. Not that it's hard to put together, but that this scene essentially shouldn't work, like a lot of things in Spider-Man 2, but it does. It's shot corny, it's edited in a corny way, and the scene itself is just corny in general too.
Nothing's worrying.
But that's a good thing. My favorite YouTuber High Top Film said it perfectly when describing this scene. This is balls on a filmmaker. This is perfectly cheesy, perfectly acted, perfectly edited. Everything about the scene is flawless. Every film student needs to study why this scene works. And he's right. This scene is so nuts, it's silly, and edited perfectly too. Like I said before, this scene shouldn't work. A lot of things in Spider-Man 2 shouldn't work. Some of the dialogue is questionable.
Oh boy, yeah.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And the plot is slightly a bit shallow, but what carries the film all the way from beginning to end is Spider-Man, or Peter Parker. Peter in this film gets beat to a pulp, not physically, well, kind of. He does get beat physically in this movie, but he mostly gets beaten emotionally. He first loses his job, then he loses Mary Jane, and his friendship with Harry goes down the drain, and after all of that, he loses his powers too. So he gives up. He stops being Spider-Man. But then we cut to the raindrops keep falling on my head scene, and again, the reason this scene is perfectly executed is because of Peter Parker. That's why this scene is so goofy, because Peter is a goofy, nerdy guy. So it being edited in a way that's goofy makes sense, because Peter would see himself this way after getting his confidence after not being Spider-Man. We have never gotten a scene like this before in a superhero movie up until this point in 2004 when Spider-Man 2 released. Essentially, this scene is about a man overcoming his anxiety and depression over a specific substance. In this case, it's Spider-Man. And we've never seen a superhero scene like this where the hero says, screw it, I'm gonna eat my hot dog, get my confidence, and get a pat on the back by my college professor, Dr. Connors.
Excellent work today, Parker. Keep it up.
And that's the theme of this scene and movie, is that simplicity leads to complexity and the idea of choice. A simple scene, a man, a Spider-Man, who's given up to do what makes him happy, but it's complex because he's supposed to use his powers for good and help others because
Sometimes, to do what's right, we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams.
that's the whole point of this movie. And the raindrops keep falling on my head scene. Mary Jane gives up her dreams of getting married to be with Peter. Dr. Octopus gives up his dreams of science to sacrifice himself. And Peter gives up his dreams of being secure to continue being Spider-Man, even if it hurts him. He's doing it because he knows it's right, and he's doing the right thing. Why superheroes need to be over the top. So this topic goes hand in hand with this scene, raindrops keep falling on my head, and with the idea of superheroes in general. Like I already mentioned before, this scene shouldn't work because of its over-the-top nature. I mean, what filmmaker would really put something like this in their film? Sam Raimi, the mad lad himself, did. This scene is so freaking goofy, though. That is what makes it work, and why it's so great, is because Peter himself is a character you could see him doing something like this and then visualizing himself like that. And that's what's so great about this scene, is that this scene is so simple with the over-the-top idea of this kind of montage that we've never gotten in a superhero film before, and we've never seen in a movie like this before this movie came out. And that's also what makes superheroes so great, is because superheroes are over the top. As much as I love The Dark Knight, which I do, Christopher Nolan made a great take on Batman in a very realistic and grounded way, but the entire concept of Batman or any superhero is utterly ridiculous. See, Batman is a guy who devoted his life to fight crime to make sure no boy will ever feel the pain and suffering that he felt through his extraordinary capacity for self-discipline, dressed as a bat. Superman, a boy sent from another planet to use his powers to inspire hope in people so that he can endure and our optimism to get through life. But he does this in red tights and a cape. And Spider-Man, a boy, just your average ordinary boy, not a care in the world, gets bit by a spider and gets spider-like powers. And he teaches us to use our talents responsibly and to always do what is right, even if he's dressed in blue and red tights with spider-like abilities. You see what I mean? Superheroes, or the concept, is silly, like this scene. This scene shows you can have fun, even overtaken by the adult theme of choice in Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 doesn't have to be dark and gritty for the sake of being dark and gritty. It can have fun while having an overarching adult theme. James Gunn, the writer and director of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, understood this, that when directing Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, he knew he had these goofy characters, but he gave them a human element, just like this scene about a man overcoming this substance that has been beating him physically and emotionally throughout the entire film, which is the idea that Spider-Man is beating him and he has to stop being Spider-Man just to have a normal day, so he can just be normal or human for once. Most good superhero films understand that. Superheroes are over the top, and so they take the concept and they put that as the backdrop for the movie. And the real overarching theme, point, or message of any superhero movie is of the hero's humanity. That's what makes this scene so amazing, because it's about a person letting go of what's been dragging them down, even if that idea helps people. We are all human, and we have a choice to be better, even if we have to let go of something first. Anyways, guys, that was my opinion on the raindrops keep falling on my head scene from Spider-Man 2 and why I believe it is the best scene out of any superhero film of all time and why it's one marvelous scene. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe, share with your friends, and until next time.